Hello and welcome to the show. We start this week's Canyon Rally with the K-Series. Now you might be thinking, well, this has already been driven down the canyon, and that is indeed true. However, I am using the ultra-powerful car mod, so this K-Series has a many horsepower V12, is all-wheel drive, ridiculously fast. We're up to 127 miles an hour before having to jump on the brakes for that crash at Tower 1. That is insane levels of speed. Get everything all crossed up into the second corner and couldn't quite hold it all together, scraping along the wall and bending up most of the right hand side of the car. Front wheel was doing an interesting wiggle as well. Yeah, speed in this thing is insane, and that does sometimes mean that, well, braking points are rather different and I wasn't quite ready. Equally, you've got to be very well positioned. There's the general warning with any car at this track. Got to make sure you're well positioned though, coming across that turn 1 crest. Easy to have a big moment. Again, too late. Under brakes into the tunnel hairpin and, well, managed to fuse the car pretty much to the rock face in that one. There is just such a tremendous amount of speed in this car that, yeah, trying to work out what you could do. And of course, there isn't the same grip with this as you got from the likes of the hill climb cars. We haven't got all of the massive aero bits. I tried to get on the power a little bit too early, wasn't quite straight enough. The car wiggles its way across the road, and we, yeah, take a little bit of a dive off the side of a cliff. Now, the car was pretty damn strong, I have to say. All of these power-configured cars that I have today were surviving these impacts really quite well, which is perhaps a little bit surprising considering the speed at which the impacts were happening. Again, another moment of I thought I was good enough, and remember, this is all-wheel drive. I thought I was lined up well enough to go for a floor it, and it wasn't quite very much squished K-Series in all of that. But from the front, it's kind of still just about recognisable, very ish. And then there's some fire, quite a lot of fire, in fact, from the car. Yeah, the back is very much flattened. Now, the speed that this thing could get up to on the run towards these final corners, 140 miles an hour. That does mean that you've really got to go on the brakes to try and slow it down. And from that speed, I didn't really have any idea. No car had ever gone that fast, quite where I was going to have to get on the brakes and quite how I was going to manage to get it all under control for here. And yeah, trying to get it slowed down, just the slightest lock of the rears and everything goes a little bit wrong. Amazingly, I mean, the car's still working from that collision. There are 3 wheels on it, and unfortunately for me, I was going to get across the finish line with 3 wheels. I think the bumper or something caught on the dirt and sort of pulled me off the course, and then we got a little bit stuck out here on the dirt. But yeah, as I said, car was surviving remarkably well. Didn't actually have that many issues, surprisingly, at this jump. Things could go wrong though. It's the speed that these cars are taking over there. You know, this hasn't got rally suspension. This is still a road-going, well, supercar, really. And yeah, we went for a dive. Once more, lost both of the rear wheels, but we did still have the front wheels. I tried driving it for a little while, but as you can imagine, didn't really handle in any way, shape, or form. And this crest, I just about got the hang of it, but still, with the speeds that you're taking and the suspension not quite being ideally suited to the well, rather large amount of forces going through the car when you land that sort of jump at 80-90 miles an hour, could still go wrong. And as ever, fairly spectacular roll, quite vicious rolls going on with this car. Was having to, you know, get the ideal speed. Even then, though, things could go wrong with the K-Series. That was perfect on the speed. We just bounced the car around. A little bit unfortunate. Amazingly, managed to slide my way down the hill, and I had myself angled perfectly. What I hadn't realised, I thought the car had survived that slide down the hill very well, but one of the front wheels was snapped, and as I went to pull away, and it just pulled me back off the course again. Unfortunate, because that was one of my favourite sort of recovers. The initial just sort of slide down the mountain and land perfectly on the road. I'm not sure I could do that if I tried with any of these vehicles, but yeah, sadly snapped a steering in all of that. Did take some time. It's mostly just getting used to the sheer speed of this car. Your braking points were all very different. You had to be a lot more careful getting on the power. Even being all-wheel drive, there was so much of it, and it was so eager to be deployed immediately that you had to be very careful. And like down here, for example, couldn't really go near the throttle for too long. You'd be going so quickly and then trying to get back on the brakes again. So it was a little bit of a coast up towards the bridge jump. We get a little bit bounced around on the landing, but nothing too bad. One thing I did find is it was a hell of a lot easier with this car. Quite understeery, so this hairpin, when there was enough space and there's more than enough power in this four-wheel drive system just to chuck it around the turn. I did get a little too much on the inside. I lost the front bumper and damaged the radiator, but that is of no major concern. The vehicle was still driving in a straight line, and the radiator, well, over a longer period of time, sure, that would cause issues, but with, just half the course remaining, it doesn't really matter. As we now come up towards these very high-speed final corners. This time much more controlled, got to be much slower on the way in. Again, the bumps could throw the car about, and you don't want to be attacking them at the sort of speeds this vehicle is capable of doing. Around the final turn, it's 112 miles an hour as we come across the finish line and go for a pirouette, amazingly managing to keep it out of all of the rocks and various roadside hazards. Yeah, brutally fast, this car. And the suspension, too supercar, really, to deal with some of the bumps. However, with a little bit of care and quite a lot of fear, it could be made down the Canyon Rally. Up next, the Sunburst, this one fitted with a V10. It might not quite have the same power as the K-Series, but it is a smaller and lighter vehicle. Once more, it is all-wheel drive. For whatever reason, this configuration didn't have a rear bumper. Not that the bumpers tend to survive particularly long anyway on this course. Again, huge speed up towards this first crest. Now, the suspension on the Sunburst was a little bit more compliant, although again, still very much sports car, supercar style suspension. It's not the nice rally suspension on here. Still does get bounced around a bit, but yeah, not as bad as we saw from the K-Series. Again, phenomenal acceleration and a bit too much speed across the bridge jump. I was also slightly mispositioned on the right-hand side, so the landing was poor. And the speeds that you're going with these cars, with normal cars, the speed that you're going and the tiny margins for error there are on this stage lead to big accidents, but these things are just so much quicker as we go. It's quite a spectacular tumble from the Sunburst before coming to a rest. There is, very little you can do. Once you've taken the jump, whatever position that car is lined up in, that's where it's going to be going. Surprisingly got away with being quite slow and quite out of position on the jump. Unfortunately, I was not early enough nowhere near early enough under braking. I just didn't realise how quick the car was going to be going in that braking zone. The car was still working though, having gone very, very fast into a concrete barrier. This little dirt section, well, if you were flat out coming across it, you were going so quick that, well, we see the dangers of the Sunburst. Lands very much splat on the rear of the car, although at this stage, actually, the vehicle itself hadn't taken as much damage as a high-speed tumble off a cliff would suggest, so it's still, well, I say drivable. I was going to say very much drivable, but, well, you see what the rear wheel is doing. But it was still, it had functioning accelerating, it had functioning steering, and the brakes worked as well. Speaking of brakes, you may notice on these early runs, the ABS was turned on. That was an accident. I thought I'd turned it off in the configurator. Somehow the module had got reinstalled. I don't know quite how it did, but on the early runs it did have ABS on, but I did realise and turn it off, I think, at this stage. So, yeah, there was no cheating from the Sunburst. Still easy to get things wrong at this first crest as we go once more flying down the canyon. Many vehicles have come to rest in this little canyon area. When you've got the speed that these cars do, that crest is very, very fearsome corner. I actually carried a lot of speed into this final section, managed to get it initially under control, ran a little bit too wide though, and then we begin the tumbling. Sunburst rolls pretty well. It rolls pretty well, especially with all the speed involved. Amazingly, that didn't break, apart from, you know, losing a bumper. The actual car survived that incredibly well. I think the radiator survived that, which is very, very rare for any vehicle. So, yeah, tough old car, this one. Not quite as difficult to drive down here as we saw from the K series. Speed-wise, I mean, again, that was up to 123 miles an hour before the crest. Incredibly fast. We actually got a big bounce onto two wheels on the landing, which I was not expecting to get away with. When I saw the car so far up on its side, I very much thought that was going to be it for this run. I thought the car was going to go over. Somehow got away with it. Also got a big slide. Had to have a big correct on the way across the bridge jump. Once more landing in the dirt, but managing to keep the car on the road. Now, in all of that, I'm not sure quite at what point it went. Something went in the front right suspension. You can kind of see the car moving around in these corners. It's very, very weird, and I'm not quite sure. You see here, as I try to get on the power, the car just wiggling. I mean, that's, to be fair, that's like the car does it at any point, because there is so much power. You haven't got the car quite straight. Things can go a little bit wrong. But yeah, something went in the front suspension, although it wasn't really affecting the car that much. Like, visually it was quite scary, but I was still able to take a lot of speed through these corners, so I kept going once more, making sure to have got the car slowed down. It's tempting to try and take so much speed into these corners. You can't get away with it. Not with these cars. They don't have the grip to carry that sort of speed. It's 117 miles an hour across the finish line for the Sunburst. That's a lot of speed. That is a hell of a lot of speed across the finish line for this vehicle. So, yeah, obviously the slightly dodgy suspension not affecting it too much. I was trying to sort of show what it was, because sort of to look at, it's difficult to spot what was going on with the vehicle. But these sort of low, stiff cars can have their problems when it comes to a very vicious rally stage. Finally, we have got a Roma, this one with a supercharged V8, not quite as crazy powerful as the K series or Sunburst, but for a Roma there is still a lot of speed in this. We're not quite going to see the giddy heights of 120 miles an hour before we get to the crest up here, but it's still almost up to 100. And of course the Roma, while this one is on some, you know, sports suspension, it's still, you know, Roma sports suspension. There's still a lot more give in this car. It's still a lot more compliant with these bumps and with the heavy impacts around a course like this. Not quite as uncontrollable either as the other two. There's not quite the same ferocious level of power delivery. I tried going across the jump flat out. Couldn't quite get away with it. The suspension is not quite able to allow the Roma to get away with that. It is a big impact. If you're going flat out across there, about 80 miles an hour, we leave the ramp. Big impact on the ground. And yeah, can't quite survive that, but I had to give it a go to see if it was going to be possible. Get things wrong big time into the second corner. Rather slow speed, rather unspectacular in many ways roll for the Roma. The guardrail actually doing its job for once and stopping a car from going soaring off down the canyon. I was going to try the jump at higher speeds again, just to, well, kind of make sure that I couldn't. I wanted to get away with carrying big speed over there, but no, still the same thing. It hits the ground, just bounces back up in the air, and you've got no control, and the speed you're going and the proximity of the various dangers alongside you, you're going to hit into something with the car. Now again, I was sort of chucking the vehicle in sideways through here to get it to turn, but it couldn't get away with cutting the inside. That's how you deal with corner cutting. Have a rock that makes cars roll over. Yeah, I wasn't going to be taking that line any time soon. Even taking sensible speed across the jump, things could still go wrong for the Roma. I tried to do an epic recovery, unfortunately. There's a signpost in the way. That would have been so amazing had there not been a signpost. I might have managed to bounce it around and have it facing the right way to carry on the run. But no, instead we skewered a sign. May have slightly, yeah, messed up. I was trying to correct for some big slides. Overcorrected, really. Twitched the car off the course. And that's not a good place. Not a good place to overcorrect whatsoever. The Roma is a hell of a sturdy car. We've seen it time and time again. And this is completely destroyed. Yeah, it will survive a lot of things falling off this mountain, but a complete nosedive into a rock formation is not one of the things that the Roma can get away with. I was carrying a lot of speed as well through this final section, a fraction too much for the SUV, running wide and launching it. I was expecting to kind of just splat the side of the rock when I realised what was happening, but no, that just launched the car miles into the air. Impressive jump indeed from the Roma. Once more across the bridge jump I go, and once more we have the back of the car bouncing around on the landing. Couldn't really save that one. However, as we tumble our way down the hill, only the radiator has been damaged amazingly. So we saw the absolutely incredible K-Series landing and sort of going down the cliff at a slow speed and being able to be controlled. This, it landed absolutely perfectly with the sort of downhill gradient of the hill. So it landed on its wheels, but it didn't wreck everything. So despite having tumbled off the mountain, it has got perfectly straight steering and still got all of its faculties working. It looks a complete wreck, but that was amazingly drivable. That's by far the best we have ever seen any vehicle survive a fall like completely off the rally stage. So yeah, it took a little bit of practice with this car, and on this final run, actually get a bit wide on the crest. Managed to recover it all quite neatly. Again, that's probably about as far off the course and recovered as you can really get away with on this. It is not a good place to be out on the dirt. This time not getting the vehicle too sideways on its run through the S's up towards the bridge jump. We could carry a little bit more speed in this than the other two, but still couldn't get away with being flat out. And the speed that the Vanster got away with, that got away with a lot of speed across this jump. Couldn't do it in the Roma. Once more, though, this vehicle is powerful enough and there's enough space here. I have the confidence to chuck it into the turn. And with these cars, it was a viable method for getting them through that corner. A lot of vehicles are too sort of twitchy and too easy to spin out. These had so much power and all-wheel drive that I could get away with doing plenty of silly stuff with them at that corner into the headwind. Now down here, I wasn't going to prat around with sliding it about. With the bumps on the inside and being so narrow, you're far too likely to smack it into a wall, so it's not worth it. The acceleration down here, again, we're up to 120 miles an hour. To put that into perspective, I believe that is quicker than the hill climb cars we're doing. So that is some serious speed from the Roma. This time making sure not to have a big running wide moment. Don't want to be clipping the rock. It's 104 miles an hour across the finish line. Not quite as fast as the bonkers Sunburst, but still a lot of speed for a Roma. Yeah, a nice car actually to drive down this course. Probably the easiest of the three to get down, although while yes, it has got a bit more ground clearance, a bit better suited suspension, still gets bounced around. I was trying to do some celebratory donuts. Unfortunately, it wasn't particularly keen on me doing the donuts, so yeah, decided to park up with the vehicle. Also, we saw absurdly strong. The Roma can survive a hell of a punishment. Now, on to the times, and all three vehicles would make it into the top 10 here. The V12 K-Series would go into second place. It would break up the hill climb cars' domination at the top of the table, but it was not enough to beat the Sunburst. The Sunburst, just too much corner speed. That thing can take a lot of speed through the turns. You know, the K-Series doesn't have anywhere near the downforce the hill climb cars do, and yeah, is a couple of seconds down on that Sunburst. The V10 Sunburst goes into 5th place. It is a 10th of a second down on the Pazima hill climb. Again, a similar story with that car. Doesn't have the corner grip of the hill climb cars and doesn't quite have the speed, or sort of the straight line speed, the acceleration of the V12 K-Series. Perhaps, to me at least, the most impressive of the lot, the supercharged Roma, 135.5. You know, it's only a couple of seconds down on the V10 Sunburst. It didn't have the speed of the Sunburst, and you know, it's not going to have the grip. It's still a blooming great big SUV. It beats the Rally Sunburst and the Rally I-Series. that's some serious handling going on in that car. That's some serious handling to be able to get it, you know, an SUV around the course that quickly. Yeah, it's got a lot of power, but it's still got to make it around the corners. So, yeah, that is a hell of a vehicle. However, that is going to be it for this video, guys. As ever, I will put links to the mods that I've used in the description so you can download them, have a go with them yourself. That's it from me, though. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.